Man, I get so excited whenever I'm back in this position because of these guys right here. Honestly, since the very beginning, Carl and Brendan have been on me, just trying to get me to a level where I can continuously elevate myself. And so I'm so grateful to be here, so grateful for all of you. And today, I really want to take the opportunity to share more in regards to helping you cultivating success through faith. And earlier today, I showed a little bit in regards to what I envision as far as looking into the definition of success and how we would define success. And this is something that I've recently discovered and that makes so much more sense for me. And I think I'm gonna really offer you today just to see a different shift of perspective, because Myron Golden says, success is defined as discovering God's purpose for your life, developing yourself for that purpose, and deploying yourself in that purpose. See, when I started into personal development, I would consistently listen to Tony Robbins and Eric Thomas because I wanted to breathe. I wanted to succeed as bad as I wanted to breathe. And at the time, I can remember I was a 21-year-old junior in college trying to figure out myself. And one of the very first things I thought would make sense was to go for an internship, in which initially I was so scared to even do that because I didn't even know whether or not if I would have that opportunity. And I can remember this very first time I walked to my first career fair and not knowing what company I should be applying to and not having any idea what I should be doing. But I was curious and even though timid. And I remember I can see a sign right there in the corner that says, software engineer interns needed. And that piqued my curiosity at the time because I was trying to get into the computer science program at UConn. And ultimately, I wanted to become a software engineer and thought that was gonna be the biggest thing that really helped me become successful. And so, as I walked towards the recruiter's table and just getting myself ready, as much as I'm shy and timid, yet I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. And out of nowhere, all of a sudden, I got caught off guard by another student who stole the handshake from me. And I was like, damn. Embarrassed what had just happened, I was just ready to immediately turn back when I heard a voice that said, hey, I don't think we've met yet. My name is Abby. Shocked by her approach, I turned back and said, no, we haven't. I'm Guillory, nice meeting you. And the recruiter walked up and made that opportunity for me to introduce myself. And I finally realized, oh my God, this is it. I get to then talk to her about what is it that I want to do. In which she asked me, what's your major? I said, computer science. With a warm smile, she replied, well, this is exactly what we're looking for. She proceeded to tell me more about the internship, tell me exactly what it was going to tell. I was just going to get the opportunity to work with startup companies and just learning about what it would be like to even launch a career path in engineering. And I can remember I was so excited because this was my first opportunity at the real world. And gracefully, I did get the opportunity. I became a software intern. And it was an 18-week internship program up in Hartford. And I can remember how I would drive about an hour and a half away from Norwalk, even though it was a long drive, but believe me, knowing that I had that opportunity was rewarding me because I could see that this was gonna help me take to the next level. Well, what I didn't know at the time was this would actually change the course of my life forever. Because by choosing to follow through that path, not only did I receive to get to work with these startup companies, but I actually got to sit in their meetings. I got to see what it was like for them to have investors when they were raising capital. And I was like, wow, this is all new to me, but this is exciting. this is the first time I get to see people that are doing something successful on a high level, getting the opportunity that I've always wanted. Well, they also offered me the opportunities to receive professional development. I was getting to learn how to start my own business. And our team of cohort, they held a competition for us where we would compete against each other and have a Shark Tank-like competition to the point where doing pitch day, out of the 3 groups that were there, my team won. Effortlessly, too. What's crazy, we even got published on the Hartford Current. I was like, oh my God, this is it. Finally, I'm meeting the success expectations that I had set for myself. And I felt this rush and basic continuous anxiety, continuous expectations where this was gonna be the rise of my career path. And I quickly decided I was gonna be setting goals for myself, huge goals in which I didn't even think I would be able to accomplish. But yet, I said, by the age of 27, I would be worth $10 million. And I would marry the love of my life. Well, I stand here before you today, not worth $10 million, not even have a girlfriend, let alone a wife. Yet, what's interesting, what I do have is I've had the opportunity to now tap into my purpose. See, the way in which we see ourselves is based on our definition of success to determine whether or not we feel successful. And it really starts with understanding what your purpose is. Honestly, renewing your mind and understanding what it is like for you to be able to see yourself regardless what level of success you see yourself, but understanding that in Romans 12, verse 2, it says, do not conform by the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And for me, building faith and having faith has always been the driving factor of how I do things and how I maneuver. Because my faith in God is what is helping me to even be standing in front of you today. So, which brings me to my next point. In terms of cultivating faith, how many of you have heard the phrase, seeing is believing? Right? Okay. Pretty much everybody. Well, let me offer you a different perspective. What if you also thought of it this way? Believing is seeing. Because the more you believe, the more in which that you can see. Earlier this week, on Monday morning, I came home from a very long day. And I still had to carry on the day because I had 2 more meetings left. One in which was actually my coaching call with Brendan at 8:30. And right after our call, I was getting ready to go take a shower, and I can remember as soon as I got in the bathroom, not even a minute later, I hear a knock outside the door. And I'm like, who is knocking? I mean, I'm in the bathroom, so I said. And I hear another knock. I just said I was in the bathroom. Why does that person keep knocking? But I couldn't fully hear who it was, but I can pinpoint that it was my dad's voice. And so I decided that I was gonna go check it out, but I'm still sitting in the bathroom and just kind of like waiting what's gonna happen. And yet again, he knocks a 3rd time. He goes and knocks in the bathroom, and frustrated, I quickly got out of the bathroom with my towels on. And I said, Dad, I'm in the bathroom, what's going on? And as soon as I got out, I see him drenched in sweat. I immediately went to panic mode. See, what I didn't tell you is that my dad's a stroke patient. About a year ago, this time last year, he had suffered his very first stroke. Something that would eventually lead to a series of hospital visits. But what we didn't know is that he was originally born with a condition called PFO. And PFO really means that he has a little hole in his heart. So all these years that he's been alive has been a blessing. And quite frankly, the doctor said, had he not had the stroke, we wouldn't even known that he was born with that condition. And it's just like baffled me because it was like, well, how would you know? And the crazy part was that with this hole, he had to go through a very intense procedure for them to close the little hole, which he was able to do 5 months ago. Something that would help basically avoid him having strokes for a long time. Well, about a month ago, he had another stroke. One in which seemed mild at the time, but quite frankly, was even more severe because he lost his mobility for a few days. And I can remember the very first thing that actually happened on that day was him being drenched in sweat again. And so you gotta imagine on Monday evening, everything that I'm seeing is a repetition of what happened about a month ago. So in my head, I'm like, no way, God, this is not about to happen again. You're not letting us to go through another process because he had to go see therapy, even though we know he was gonna make it, but you can't really tell in these situations. And so after going to panic mode, I quickly went to my mom. I said, Mom, did you not see Dad pass by being drenched in sweat? She was like, what do you mean? I mean, you'd think sweating is just a normal thing we do, but for stroke patients, sometimes that could be different because they experience something called TIA. And so my mom then proceeded to get up immediately out of her chair to go to the bathroom to see what I was saying. And as she got to see him out there, she immediately got out and said, Guillory, get dressed. I'm like, Mom, he's fine. Like, we went through this already. Well, that was her point. Guillory, get dressed. And so, reluctantly, I listened to her because as much I was like tired from the day, not knowing what I was gonna do, I mean, I was supposed to be getting ready for today's speech and doing so much more. And so I said, you know what? I'm not gonna let what happened last time happen again. And so I had no other choice but just to get dressed, get up, and take him and rush him straight to the hospital. We rushed him straight to the ER, and lucky for us, it was a pack house. You see the irony there. It wasn't as lucky, but fortunately though, for any stroke patient, anyone who has patients with stroke, when it comes to the hospitals, the first thing they will always try to have some form of nurse to come out and help and see what's going on to verify whether or not they're actually experiencing the stroke. And so we were blessed that we actually received immediate care regardless of who was in the room because they knew that was an emergency. And they took him in the back room and put all these machines on him and trying to get all these tests just to make sure that he was gonna be okay. And I'm hoping that it is gonna be okay. Well, all this time as they were doing these tests, I remember my mom and I sitting in the waiting room just praying that everything's gonna be fine. But I knew everything was gonna be fine because again, it went back to knowing that in my faith that God was gonna help us get through that moment. Because see, I recognized we were gonna have another opportunity to not have to go through this again because the way it had happened, it just didn't make sense again. And fortunately, we were right. He was able to go to the hospital to get the results, and they mentioned that he's gonna be fine. And we only had to have hospital visits throughout the week. Now, I share this story with you only because in cultivating success through faith, it requires you to have deep belief in yourself, but also, I personally believe in God. I mean, you can choose to do it in however much higher power you want to see and call it differently, but that's what has been driving my life and to the point where I can honestly say that cultivating success through faith is based on this last point I'll bring along is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So thank you, everyone. This is my time. I appreciate you all. It's all for everything.